Hello everyone, my name is Nox, and today I'm bringing you the final update for my Charge Barbarian and the variants that I have of it. I have an Upheaval variant and a HOTA variant for you guys, and to just sort of give you an update on my character, as well as show you sort of what the best in slot would be, and the now optimized Paragon Tree as I've been playing it all the way through level 100 on Hardcore. I've really had a blast playing it. I've been blasting mid 80s to mid 90s nightmare vaults, and it's been a blast. I've really been enjoying it and been farming gear. So I just wanted to show you what I've been up to and see if you guys would like to give it a try yourself. So I've leveled as this build from level 1, and I did the Upheaval variant pretty much all the way through. There is going to be some HOTA footage as well because I was messing around with that. HOTA is just as good. It's probably better for bossing, but I really liked Upheaval for the leveling process. I really like Upheaval for the vaults. It just seems to provide some more coverage. And the great thing about this build is it requires no uniques to get started, and it essentially really starts to feel good after you find one specific legendary affix that we'll get to in just a second. So going through just the skill tree, we take Lunging Strike and Enhanced Lunging Strike. This is just to get 2 points in. Then we max out Upheaval for the Upheaval variant, or HOTA for the HOTA variant. We come over here and grab Rallying Cry into Strategic Rallying Cry. This is so we can get Fortify into the build. We max out Charge as soon as we can. We take Warcry into Mighty Warcry, again for some more Fortify into the build. This passive is really important, Battle Fervor. This, when a Brawling skill deals damage to at least one enemy, you gain Berserking for 3 seconds. We're always going to be Berserking because of this, and also because of the Power Charge reset here. This is super important. You're going to be Berserking all the time. You're going to be doing a ton of damage, even in the early leveling process before you get any gear at all. This build feels great if you're going to be leveling a Barb. We come over here and grab some passives. For our ultimate, we take Wrath of the Berserker, and we take Unconstrained for our key passive. Now, how I leveled this build is I maxed the skills first, then I took the passives, starting with Battle Fervor, and then working my way down, and then I just sort of filled things in as you go. It's pretty easy and straightforward, and with the build in the description below, you'll have a HOTA variant and a Upheaval variant for the respective builds, so you can follow along however you choose. So going over to the equipment here, let's start with the defensive aspects. With the helm, we have of the Protector on our helm. This one is really optional, but I like it because you're in the most danger when you're fighting an elite enemy anyway, so you may as well have an extra barrier there. For the chest piece, this is the one that does not change regardless of what uniques we have, and that is the Juggernauts aspect. Now, prior to this season, we did not have the Juggernauts aspect. We used Disobedience instead. Juggernauts is significantly better because it provides the flat armor all the time, no matter what happens. So that means if you're walking through a doorway or charging into something and don't have stacks of Disobedience yet, you're still at the armor cap, which is 13,500. Now, it doesn't factor in the armor from Juggernauts on the max roll calculator, but you'll notice in game, as soon as you leave town, you'll have plenty of armor. I actually am overcapped, so pay attention to that. You can drop the armor percentage roll on your amulet if you need to, and some of the armor points on the tree if you need to, if you're well over that 13,500 cap. Moving down to the next defensive aspect, I have the Numbing Wrath aspect on my pants, and that's each point of fury generatable at maximum, gives you some Fortify. Again, this is more Fortify into the build. The reason why it's on the pants and the reason why we're taking Fortify on the skill tree as well is eventually these will be replaced with a unique, and so we'll need to get Fortify from somewhere else. For our boots, I like to take Ghost Walkers. There is an option here where you take the one where it's Relentless Berserkers, that damaging an enemy with a core skill has a chance to extend the duration of berserking by 2 seconds. This is actually what I'm using on my Barbarian right now. I find that it helps me maintain berserking on a single target when I'm using HOTA. Upheaval sort of refreshes it on its own, but if you're using HOTA on a single target and you want to make sure you have berserking up, this is a good way to go. But Ghost Walkers is way better for speed farming and most any other scenario. And let's get into the offensive aspects, starting with the most important, and that is Ancestral Charge. This is the charge calls forth Ancients who also charge. dealing 60% of normal damage. I have this on a two-hander because I like the charge playstyle and I'm doing mostly speed farming content right now, and it helps those and those ancestral minions do a ton of damage for you, so you really don't have to charge the same enemy twice most of the time, even the highest level of content. When I'm leveling up, like if I started at level 1 again and I wanted to level this character again, you want this ancestral charge probably on a ring, because you're going to be replacing your weapons over and over and over again, and you don't want to have to keep replacing the aspect. That's just silly. So while you're leveling, have this on a piece of jewelry. At the very end game, when you get a 925 weapon, throw it on your sword and call it good. For the next important aspect, we have Bone Breakers, and this is each point of fury you generate while at maximum, increases the damage of your next core skill. This is just a single target increase, to be completely honest with you. Charge one-shots everything in the game up until mid-world tier 4 or anything you're doing on single target. Like, it isn't going to one-shot bosses, but it's going to do a considerable amount of damage to them. This is just boosting that core skill up so you can increase your kill times on those single target fights. For our one-handed weapons, we have Edge Masters and we have Brawlers. Now, Brawlers and Edge Masters are both optional. These are ones that I would drop if I got, like, let's just say I got a Grandfather here. I would drop one of these and put Ancestral Charge over. So these are more of the optional aspects, but they're very, very strong throughout the game. If you pick them up, Brawlers feels really good when you're clearing. It helps just blow up the small enemies on top of the larger ones. It feels pretty good. For our amulet here, we have our Earth Strikers. And this is after swapping weapons 8 times. Your next non-basic skill will overpower and deal 75% increased overpower damage. This is very, very strong. And this is what we'll get into the sort of weapon system, arsenal system that the Barbarian has. I almost always have my charge on my slashing weapon or my highest damage two-hander. I have upheaval mostly on my bludgeoning weapon, my two-handed bludgeoning weapon, and then I have my generator on my dual-wielding weapons. I have my core skill on my bludgeoning weapon because when I switch to HOTA, it's forced to use a mace. So having charge on the slashing weapon just makes it so I don't have to fiddle with it as much. And this just means that while I'm running around in a nightmare dungeon, I'm probably going to be swapping weapons passively, and then I'll get an overpower and it'll feel good. That's it. For our rings, we have Band of Echoing Fury. You generate 10 Fury per second while any shout is active. We have 2 shouts in our bar. We have a ton of Fury because we're Berserk all the time, and that increases our Fury regeneration. We're also using Wrath of Berserker. We're not really spending Fury either. We're only pressing upheaval really on like a super tanky rare or on a single target fight. So this is where like you're very, very rarely spending Fury, but when you are, it's good to have some. And then we have Bear Clan Berserker's Band. So this just gives you cooldown reduction on your brawling skills. What my barb is currently using is Ring of the Ravenous, and this is just because I picked it up at level 79, and it has +3 ranks to all brawling skills on it. Increasing the rank of charge decreases its cooldown. So I just wanted as many ranks of charge as possible, and I didn't have brawling skills on my amulet, so having it on the other ring turned out to be just fine. This is why it's in here. I just wanted to show you guys how to use this ring if you guys were interested in using it. It's not at all required for the build, but you'll notice in the footage in the background, I'm charging and charge is resetting all the time. I don't have a cooldown on charge. I get to charge basically infinitely, provided I'm hitting enemies. So moving on to the gloves here, we have the only piece of gear that really changes between the two variants, and that's because you're going to have ranks of upheaval on the upheaval version, and you're going to have ranks of Hammer of the Ancients on the Hammer of the Ancients version. So for the upheaval version, we take Sundered Ground. Upheaval is guaranteed to overpower and deals 20% increased damage every 25 seconds. And for the HOTA version, we have Hammer of the Ancients quakes outward and deals 15% increased damage. Now, both of these powers are actually available in the Codex if you're doing seasonal content. So this is just given to you for free in Chapter 1 of the Season Journey, and Hammer of the Ancients is unlocked in the Sunken Ruins and Scotsclan. So While you're leveling up, you have access to both of these powers and you can try both builds out if you want. Again, I would recommend just have a pair of Hammer of the Ancients gloves or have a pair of Upheaval gloves, and you can swap back and forth as you need. Getting into the Paragon Tree, when you guys explore this for yourself, you guys will notice that I have several different versions of this character on the Paragon Tree. But what I really wanted to do is design a board that I didn't have to respec as I got to a higher level, because I find that very annoying. So what I did is I have this level 75 tree, and the main difference between it and the full endgame tree is that the exploit glyph happens to be right here as opposed to later in the tree in the later version. So what the level 75 tree looks like, we take Ire in the first slot because damage while berserking is a very strong stat. And the reason why it's a very strong stat is Blood Rage. Killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to grant berserking. We don't really care about that part. But the second part is your damage is increased by 25% multiplicative of your damage while berserking. So in this perfect gear that I have here, we have 89%, and on the level 90 tree, we have 103%. This is the max that you can theoretically get if you have perfect rolls on everything, to my understanding. There might be a couple other pieces that I can get some stuff on, but I'm almost positive this is the highest amount you can get. On the Blood Rage tree, we do take Brawl, and that's just an 18% increased damage to brawling skills. Charge is a brawling skill, so that's why we take that. And then moving up here to the level 90 tree, we have Warbringer and Exploit. So Exploit now goes up here, and Marshall replaces it at the third board here on the Carnage board. We come up to Weapons Master with Might, and this is just damage with two-handed weapons. And we come up here to Crusher, which is while wielding a mace, you deal increased overpower damage. And we come all the way up to Decimator as well. Finally, we have Bonebreaker. Every 12 seconds, your next skill is guaranteed to overpower. So with this tree, as far as what to get first, we have the level 75 tree to grab this. But then once you go to the level 90 plus variant, it's really up to you. I personally didn't have Bonebreaker until I was level 100 because I didn't feel I needed it. I added it into the build at the very end because I felt like I needed a little bit more single target. And so that's why I added it. It's not necessary at all to level through the game that way. Maybe the capstone boss would have been a little bit faster if I had this, but it's entirely up to you guys. And I would encourage you to play around with it, see if you like it. Maybe you want to take Bonebreaker later. Maybe you want to take it sooner. It's entirely up to you. As long as your tree looks something like this, you're going to be doing fine throughout the entire game. You will notice that I have 23 points left over. So with this is really where you guys get to choose what you need for your character at the time. So at the level 90 tree, I do have Ire maxed out for the maximum damage while berserking. And then for my character personally, I needed some fire resistance, so I came over here and grabbed some. And maybe you need cold resistance, so you can come over here and grab some. That's what these extra points are for. And I specifically made this tree to be flexible. So if you didn't need resistances, you could grab some more damage if you wanted. You could fill out your exploit glyph so you have more vulnerable damage. You can come up here and grab Carnage for extra attack speed. It's really your choice at this point. You have the core of the build completely established at like level 91.5. So you have everything you ever need. And then from here, it's just, well, maybe I'll take a little damage reduction. Maybe I'll take a little bit of resistances. It's really up to you guys. I do have a Max Fury variant of the build, and that's the Boss Killer variant. And that's just coming over here and grabbing these Fury nodes because Hammer of the Ancients has a rune that says deals 1% increased damage for each point of Fury you have when using it. So, you know, if we have 189 Fury, we're doing almost 3 times damage if we're whacking an enemy with that Max Fury. So something to consider there. And I actually think it's more than that because it doesn't factor into Bolt's Will. So going into the other gear variants that you can aspire to, I will make a note that I leveled through the entire game and the only unique that I used was Ring of the Ravenous before level 100. I got this at level 79. This is the only unique I used from the entirety of level 1 to level 79. And the only reason why we use it is because it has +3 ranks of all brawling skills. again, more ranks in charge means more cooldown reduction. So it just helped me get to that break point of never having to stop charging a little bit sooner. So I have some versions here, Upheaval with uniques and that uses Hellhammer, Tybalt's Will, and Ring of the Ravenous. I have HOTA with uniques that uses Tybalt's Will and Tuskhelm. There's something to be said about Godslayer as well. This is another very, very strong helmet. It's just essentially 60% increased damage on a single target. I prefer that for the boss killer setup, but if you find this, go ahead and use it. I mean, it's amazing. And then finally, we have the boss killer variant, and that uses the extremely broken combination of Banished Lord's Talisman and Ring of the Red Fuhrer. So these two combined create a situation where you have a guaranteed overpower and a guaranteed crit. The critical strike deals 30% multiplicative increased damage and 120% increased multiplicative damage. If you combine that with the weapon swap here, you have a multiplier that's like, this is why you see Barb's one-shotting Duriel, is this combination of aspects and uniques. So very, very strong. Would recommend it if you're going to be farming a bunch of bosses. You can just one tap them and it's great. I don't have these uniques, by the way. I don't have Tybalt's Will. I don't have Banished Lords, and I do have a Ring of Red Fuhrer, but it's kind of useless on its own. But again, like I said, I progressed through the entire game, felt totally fine, didn't need this, but I'm going to give you a boss killing variant of this build just so you have it. And again, on the Paragon, we do take the max Fury here because more Fury means more Hammer of the Ancients damage. And if you want to one-tap bosses, you may as well do it with the biggest numbers possible. Moving on to the Seneschal Companion, we have Flash of Adrenaline. That's our utility skill. I always have it attached to duration and tactical support. I also use Safeguard here for just some extra damage reduction because I play hardcore. If for some reason you get lucky and you find the Genesis support, this is where you put it. This just increases the effectiveness of it. So it goes from a 20% damage amp to a 50% damage amp. So that's super nice. But I am currently using Safeguard because I have not found it. So, and then for the other one, we use Tempest. Tempest hits really fast and has a super low cooldown. And I use Efficiency, Resource, and Fortify support. Now, if I got super lucky, I would throw Evernight in place of Fortify, and that gives you +4 to all skills. It'll have 100% uptime. It's insane. Charge will have a super short cooldown. Hammer of the Ancients and the Upheaval are going to have insane skill ranks. So very, very strong build if you get those as well. Those are both just bonuses on top. But we use Resource and Efficiency for the crit, Resource for the resource, and these are just to make sure that this buff here has 100% uptime. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I really loved playing through the game with this character. I'm actually really enjoying the vaults of the new season, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.